All right, good evening, Broncos country. I'm Scott Kennedy. We're going to go ahead and bring in the rest of our Facebook group, so bear with me. And Zach, you need to say it. I don't feel comfortable saying what we need to let happen.
I'm going to say it this last time, but if we do a show together again, Scott, I'm making you say it. Let it breathe, baby. We have to let it breathe until we see all those beautiful check marks. We're getting to that point right now, but you're an honorary priest, Scott, so you're going to have to get with the program and
I'm more like
learn the
what's
verbiage.
below the priest. I'm like the altar boy or something like that. Compared to you degenerates, I'm definitely the altar boy.
This ain't morning time. This is closing time. You know what I'm saying? So we got to let it breathe. After hours podcast. But I hope everyone's doing excellent tonight. I think I see Twitter is kind of lagging behind, but we're gonna get started with tonight's program. I hope everyone's doing great. This beautiful Wednesday, January 19th. I am Zack Kelberman, joined by my co-host this evening, Scott Kennedy, filling in once more for Chad Jensen, who's down right now with the bug that shall go unnamed. And I feel like a little bit he transferred that bug through the phone when I talked to him because I have like a sore throat going on. I'm kind of tired. I feel like I'm getting sick. Hopefully, it's not anything serious. But how are you doing, Scott? I hope
Well,
better than I'm
I
feeling.
kept thinking, I have to have it. I just have to.
Everyone.
Nope. I'm just old and tired. And you know what? I'm not getting any better. As time goes on, I'm still old and tired. But that's why I love doing these shows. These shows, they amp up my energy levels. Of course, then I go into like deep depression as I come back down off the shows afterwards. But no, I really like doing these. So I'm doing well. It's been it's a fun time of year. It's with all the coaching stuff. It kind of helps kill a little bit of time until the game's coming up this weekend, and then we're another day closer to Senior Bowl. We're another day closer to the draft. We're another day closer to a new Broncos head coach and a new beginning.
If anyone out there questions Scott's devotion to the podcast, he said he goes through a depressive episode when he finishes a show in between shows. He does so much every week now for us, producing and doing shows with Nick and co-hosting with me. It's been a really fun time, but we're going to get into some coaching news that we have today. The Broncos conducted 2 more head coaching interviews, both of them with defensive-minded assistants. We're going to get into the details of that. This is coming off yesterday's meetings. We didn't get to go over that because obviously we weren't on last night, but the Broncos on Tuesday in the Dallas area sat down with Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore and defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn, as we all know, is the rumored favorite. He's the apple of George Paton's eye, and from what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding, he interviewed really well, as did Kellen Moore, and as did Nathaniel Hackett, who the Broncos met with last week, along with Aaron Glenn and Luke Getsy. But it still seems like a 2-horse race between Hackett and Quinn, with Quinn the slight favorite. But today, the Broncos met with 2 more head coaching candidates. They're down to, they've interviewed 6 now of the 10. 2 more today were Gerard Mayo, Patriots inside linebackers coach, and met with him in the Providence area, and also Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who they sat down with in Philadelphia. Like I said, 4 more to go. They have Kevin O'Connell and Brian Callahan tomorrow. O'Connell in Los Angeles and Callahan remotely. And they have Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, on Friday to wrap up the coaching search, and hopefully we have a decision after that. Again, as of right now, it seems like Quinn's the favorite, but there's a few dark horses in the race. We have an article we want to go over where Woody Page, the Broncos insider columnist for the Denver Gazette, said that Callahan and O'Connell, don't count them out just yet, even though Quinn interviewed really well. So that's the latest. Scott, what do you make of it?
I don't know. I think it'll be a little anticlimactic, although I think Quinn's going to be a good hire wherever he ends up. I like Dan Quinn. I like what he's going to bring to a team, especially a team that's in need of an infusion of energy. I think he will definitely bring that. But if we go through all of this and it ends up being the guy we thought it was going to be all along, I don't know. That's, to me, Zach, it's just it's a little anticlimactic. I don't know.
Yeah, I was hoping that Peyton didn't go into this with one candidate in mind and nothing can sway him, because that would give me shades of John Elway. In 2017, going with Vance over candidates like Kyle Shanahan or even Dave Tobe, the Chiefs special teams coordinator. Before we get into more tonight, Scott, I feel like we should shout out some people in the room with us. Beto Garcia, as always, Colin Wood. I'm just highlighting some of your questions and on comments that I see. Luke Wright, what's up, Broncos country? Zach Williams wants to know, not just yet. He's not announced. They're going to go through the interviews probably, as Tyler here says, next week sometime. Silent One says, hello, Scott. So you have a personal shout out. So does Dylan. Dylan doesn't like me anymore, just you, Scott. So
well, I
he
was
says
in
hello.
early. I was in early. So those are, you'll notice I came in. I'm always here before y'all. And I'll hop into the chat and say hello, good evening. Also, they were responding to me because I went into YouTube and say, hey, so don't take it personal. I was just earlier. You were working. You were actually working. I'm sitting here twiddling my thumb doing mock drafts on Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator.
I was going to say early doesn't register with me. I don't know what early is, but we have a super here, a quick early super from Allison Rychik. I'm going to just say
Rychik?
I'm going to just say Addison, $1.99 super. Thank you so much. In my opinion, Addison says hiring Quinn will decide on Peyton's longevity. Yeah, it's certainly taken a gamble going against the grain with another defensive mind, but in so many ways, Dan Quinn is not Vic Fangio. So you'd feel a little more comfortable with Quinn being the leader of men. But as I put out on Twitter yesterday, and we talked about on Monday's podcast, Scott, if they go with Dan Quinn, then the offensive coordinator hire, whoever that may be, whether that's Luke Getsy, Mike McDaniel, whoever, that's infinitely more important than the head coaching hire.
All right. You want to talk about being able to build a staff. Now, I mentioned what a mistake it was hiring Steve Sarkisian to replace Kyle Shanahan. But let's take a look. I sent this to you, Zach, earlier today.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that 2016 Atlanta Falcons staff that Dan Quinn had the head coach. Okay, Raheem Morris, former head coach, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was a wide receivers coach. He's now the defensive coordinator for the LA Rams and getting interviews. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, all three of those guys were on staff. Now, you're obviously not going to get all of those guys, but you could end up with a Mike McDaniel to come in and be offensive coordinator. You get the quarterback coach under LaFleur to come in and be maybe on your staff, be your offensive coordinator. And you get a guy who can energize a team and the players want to play for. There's reasons. I know, like I said, it's anticlimactic, but there's reasons to be really excited if Dan Quinn gets this job.
Yeah, and if you hire someone like Luke Getsy, there's so many around the NFL who believe, and even Aaron Rodgers, that Luke Getsy is a head coach in waiting, the next great up-and-coming young mind. So if you go with Dan Quinn and Luke Getsy, you're basically, in a sense, getting two head coaches on one staff, and that's what's important for me. Mike McDaniel is another great choice. That's another future head coach. But if you go with Dan Quinn, he doesn't work out. If you have the equivalent of a Kellen Moore underneath him, so a Getsy or a McDaniel, you can fire Quinn and promote the offensive coordinator. You would have that head coach in waiting. It's so important for the Broncos to have their own pipeline and not keep pilfering from other teams.
So I know the state of being is a friendly phrase around here. Is, it's not a location. It's a state of being for Broncos country. But
yes, sir.
Broncos country is pretty damn strong in Georgia. I'll tell you that. With Mark from Georgia, I'm in Atlanta. Mark Lindmood is here all the time. There are several of us that are representing Broncos country in the state of Georgia. So Mark, welcome. He says, "What's up, my guys? We appreciate the super." Mark, he says, "Hackett, machete."
I like it.
And hey, Scott. Hey, Kelberman. So good evening. Appreciate you being here, Mark.
Mark is the God King on the podcast, Scott. As you know, he is one of the most generous people I've ever come across, and Mark knows how much he's appreciated. Good to see you, Mark. Hope you're having a great start to your week. I hope you're having a great hump day Wednesday, as is everyone out there. What else we got here? I saw some comments that I want to get to. So they asked about...
I like the question at 24 that was on Facebook from Kevin Lynn.
Okay.
He says, how does one owner being more rich than another affect the team when every team has the same cap limit? Does a cap come directly from owner's account? And it all depends on how much money they want to spend or what? It's a good question. And it comes in, you're more flexible when you have more cash. And typically, a lot of these are basically corporate owned. A lot of these teams are corporate owned. So you don't have too much flexibility. But signing bonuses, when you need to move on from a guy, hey, can I buy out this coach's contract? If I've got Liberty Media as my ownership group of this team, maybe I'm not allowed to come up with the $12 million I wanted to fire Vic Fangio last year to pay off his contract. Maybe I can't get $20 million, $30 million signing bonuses to bring in Aaron Rodgers. That's when it starts mattering who your owners is. A lot of times you should have, based on your operating capital, which is in the billions. It's in the hundreds of millions a year for an NFL team. You should have a budget that you can work with. But when you need to go outside of that budget to get a little creative, it's good to have an owner that has a little extra cash on hand.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And basically, this is the question I wanted to talk about. And you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. And Eric Figueroa chiming in, and he wants to know the possibility of the Broncos trading back in the draft for more picks. Guys, we're going to kind of interweave the show tonight with questions that you have and comments. We're going to get to the coaching stuff, but we covered kind of the nuts and bolts. We'll come back to it. We want to bop around and see what y'all have to say tonight. But in terms of the Broncos trading back, if they do pick up an Aaron Rodgers, what would be their second biggest need? Or Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins, whatever quarterback would go the veteran route, their next biggest need arguably is edge rusher. Or
I say edge and right tackle. Where are the places other than quarterback I can improve this team the most? Edge. I'd say edge first. Also, I agree with you there. And I think not only it's all synergy here. The edge helps out your interior linemen. You know, we were a little disappointed this year in Shelby Harris's play. Mike Purcell, all these guys. Well, maybe Shelby Harris is playing better if he's got a better edge next to him who's more of a threat. When you got Malik Reed getting blocked out of the play by tight ends, it means guards and tackles have their way to go after Shelby Harris. If they needed to use a tackle to chip on the edge and make sure that he was being handled, all of a sudden things open up a little bit more for your two ends in a 3-4. So edge number one for me, right tackle number two, and after that I'm just looking for the old best available player. Who's my best fit for straight out talent. But I'd argue you could probably use another. You can't have enough DBs. We saw that this year. Seemed like you had a bunch of them, and you were scraping bottom of the barrel. Someone doesn't live up to the hype. Someone, a free agent comes in and doesn't get it done. Two guys go down with injuries. All of a sudden, one of the big questions in August, Zach, was what are we going to do with Patrick Surtain? Where's he going to play? Well, you needed him everywhere by the third week of the season.
Yeah, and to your point about better edge play, helping out the interior linemen, it brings me happiness to think about what Draymond Jones could be with better play around him and more active outside linebackers taking up blockers. So I definitely agree with that. And one last point before I hop into a super from Jonathan Figueroa. I'm not sure any relation to Eric. If they go the linebacker route, I would trade back potentially for Nakobe Dean. Right now, he's kind of my guy. The case that you laid out was spectacular. That sold me right away. I don't know. I go number 9 on him. I think it's a little too rich for my blood, but you trade down to maybe the late teens, early 20s and take him. That's an option. Or it's unlikely if Paton goes the quarterback route in the first round. Number 9 is way too early, but they might move down. Those are the two scenarios where they might trade back. And with George Paton, who stockpiles picks like they're gold, it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, with Nakobe Dean, it's just what else does he do for your team other than play a plus linebacker position? You've got your defensive quarterback. You've got the guy that's going to make everybody around him better because he knows everybody's job. He knows what's coming. I mean, I'm exaggerating to a certain extent, but I mentioned before, you hear sometimes it's like, oh, we were a little predictable. Their dang linebacker was calling out our plays before we ran them. That's Nakobe Dean. I mean, he didn't just graduate in 3 years from the University of Georgia. He actually got an engineering degree. Most of these guys are in management or, something like that. Early childhood development. They're there to play football, to quote. They're not there to play school, to quote Cordero Jones. And he was right. These guys, they don't care what you make of your scholarship is entirely up to you, because all the coaches care about is their 7-figure salaries and making sure you stay eligible. And it's hard to do that when you're taking legit majors like engineering in 3 years, and then to go out there and just kick butt like he does, not just kick butt, but kick his teammates' butts in the gear. Yeah, I'm a Nakobe Dean fan.
What always stuck with me was at Stanford, wasn't Andrew Luck like an architectural engineer major or something like that, or rocket science? It was something spectacular, and it's like he was the
Impressive.
combination of, amazing quarterback, amazing student, amazing person. But Jonathan hopping in there, 499 super. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This is more for you, Scott. He goes, I'm in Kennesaw, right down the road from you. I really would love to get Hackett for head coach. Rock on Broncos. Scott, I'll let you address the Kennesaw part and the geolocation part to that.
Kennesaw's going north up from the city center and to the left a little bit. And if you go just a shade farther, like this much farther, you run into Justin Fields. So Justin Fields is from right there. And then you go a little bit farther on 75 and you get Trevor Lawrence. So those two guys were about 15, 20 minutes apart in Cartersville and Kennesaw. And that's where Jonathan is. So good area.
And we learned if you run into Justin Fields, he'll turn the ball over. So, Scott, let me ask you real quick. I want to get some more supers. As of right now, it's Wednesday, January 19th, 6:33 Mountain Time. Who is your preferred head coach for the Broncos? Who would you pick if you're George Paton?
Oh, God, it's hard because, Zack, I say all the time, and Claude, appreciate the stars, my man. Appreciate the support coming in on Facebook. I'm biased because I like Dan Quinn. So there's my bias. Like I said, we're all biased. What is yours? Do you recognize it? Can you compensate for it? It makes me nervous that a guy that I really like could go to a place and fail and be hated by a group that I also really like. It's kind of the same thing. As y'all know, I'm a big soccer fan. I root for a big team in England called Chelsea Football Club. My favorite player was Christian Pulisic, a U.S. international USA guy. Well, he went to Chelsea. I'm like, I don't like that because if he's struggling, man, they're all over him. I don't want to see. I'm almost afraid of seeing Dan Quinn go to the Broncos and fail. It makes me nervous. I'd rather see Nathaniel Hackett come in and do well, and I don't have that risk because I don't know anything about this guy. Yeah. I think they're both, the energy they bring are both really, really good hires. I think for the longer term, I would probably rather have Nathaniel Hackett. If I think I've got a shot at winning the whole thing in the next 2 years, I'd rather have Dan Quinn.
I have Nathaniel Hackett had a presser today as the Packers get ready for their playoff game. I have it on my Twitter right now if anyone wants to check it out, at Kelberman NFL, if you guys don't follow me already. His charisma, his energy, and his football insight, it's so refreshing and it's so addictive to watch. I'm rooting for the guy. Regardless of whether he goes to the Broncos or not, he deserves to be a head coach, and some team is getting a good coach if they hire him. But Josh hopping in here, Josh Alstrom, $4.99 super. Thank you so much, Josh. Hope you're having a great night. He goes, if a trade doesn't help us have high-profile picks, I think trying to convert Baron Browning might be our best bet at getting that elite guy. Oh, man, I'm so torn because I don't know that I look at Baron Browning and I see, like, all-pro caliber. I see good starter, capable starter, blue-collar guy. You could get by with him, but you can upgrade on him, too. I don't see Patrick Willis. I don't see Luke Kuechly. I don't see Micah Parsons. I do like Baron Browning a lot, but the injury jacket he's already accumulated, that's kind of scary. And I don't know. He has some warts to his game. He's not rock solid all the time in run coverage. He blows his responsibilities in pass coverage at times. He was a rookie. He's playing with a bunch of depleted players around him, but I don't know, Scott. Maybe you differ in your opinion. I just don't see that 10-year starter in Baron Browning.
I think there's a reason he dropped to the fourth round. It wasn't just positional value. If you're one of those guys, a Patrick Willis, D'Amico Ryans type of guy, you go higher than that. So that was a really good pick. And can he be a very serviceable player? Absolutely. Can you? And the word that you just used, Zack, you could upgrade on him for sure. You don't need to. So if I've got two guys level and it's my pick, or I've got three guys level on my board, and one's a linebacker, one's a corner, and one's an interior lineman, I'm probably going in a different direction because I'm like, you know what? I feel good about Baron Browning. I'd also like to say there's a reason we've talked about Josie Jewell coming back. I'd like to see him with another year of having Josie Jewell playing with him and mentoring him and some of these young linebackers. So he might end up, there's nothing but upside. You can still get better. And he's got the physical tools. I think he was a very well testing player, but you could upgrade there you could for sure.
Yeah, Josh clarifies here. Convert him to edge if we don't have a first-round pick. I'm not wild about that. I mean, keep him at one spot. We all saw what happened to DeMarcus Walker when he tried to shoehorn a player into both spots. You end up getting a player that's not good in either spot. Let him learn inside linebacker. You have a potential starter. He has some experience. You got to get that blue chip edge rusher, though. You can't get by on the Malik Reeds. You can't get by on the Cooper. As much as I like him, he's not that game-changing outside linebacker. They need that presence off the edge. I don't think Bradley Chubb, until proven otherwise, Scott, is that. And I'm not experimenting with converting Baron Browning. Leave him there and go get someone better. That's a pure edge guy.
I have seen him rush the passer, but I think rush the passer. Boy, did I screw that up. Rush.
I'm with you tonight.
But I think it's more of a fifth guy, more of an outside linebacker in a 4-3, as opposed to a stand-up defensive end in a 3-4, where you're only sending four guys. And he's one of the edge guys. An edge in a 3-4 is basically a hybrid almost, a defensive end outside linebacker. I don't think he's that guy, but I think he could be Will Sam coming in off the as a blitzing in a 4-3. I think he could do that for sure. I've seen him do that before, but not necessarily playing as one of the front five in a 3-4.
That's a good point, that it kind of depends on whoever the Broncos' next defensive coordinator, head coach is, the scheme. If they go to a 4-3 or 3-4, that could impact Barron's, where he plays and his impact. But at the worst, you have a guy who can play outside linebacker and was a starting inside linebacker. So keep him where he is, let him develop. Jonathan Hobson, again, $9.99 super. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. Scott, he says, I own Auto Experts Repair. Shout out. And service in Kennesaw, and Justin Fields' dad is actually one of my customers. Pretty cool. Zach, what's the cons on Quinn and the cons on Hackett? The cons on Quinn, he's not an offensive guy. That's number one. They need to go the other way, I think, after failing with VJ and failing with Vic. I'm not comparing Quinn to Vic. They're different in a lot of ways. But, two strikes, you don't want to strike out with the third guy. It's time to go the other direction. You're seeing with young coaches in the division what they can do, around the NFL what they can do. Most of them are offensive minds, so that's number one. Number two is he came up pretty small in the playoffs. I mean, people regard Dan Quinn like he's Buddy Ryan in his prime. He really is not that good. He gets a lot out of his players, but he's not the perfect, blemishless candidate either. That would be the biggest thing to me. And also his track record. He was 43-41 or 44-42 at career as a head coach. He was treading water 500. He didn't.
You got to take that out of your mind. 500 in Atlanta is like 750 somewhere else. 500 is good.
Yeah. But in the NFL, it's not much.
That makes him like the third winningest coach of all time for the Atlanta Falcons in 60 years.
I want more than mediocrity. And also his offensive coordinator hirings. Obviously, he lucked into Kyle Shanahan, but he also lived and died by Dirk Cutter. It's kind of like what Vic did with Pat Shurmur. So there are some shades of Vic. He's a good rah-rah guy. That's the pro. He's a high-energy guy, good leader, a real leader of men, a galvanizing presence for the locker room, but just not being the offensive mind and going against the grain. That's the con of Quinn. I'll throw this over to you, Scott, real quick about Hackett, though. I want to say he doesn't have the experience. We don't know if he can lead a whole team. He's a first-year coach, and the Broncos conversely fail with first-year coaches in VJ and Vic. They might not want to go that route. They might want an experienced guy, new ownership coming in. They want a steady hand, and we don't know if Hackett can do that job. He also doesn't call plays. That would be Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. He also has some guy named Aaron Rodgers quarterbacking that team. That probably helps a little bit. And people point to Hackett's background in Jacksonville, and they talk about Blake Bortles and his... I think you broke it down recently. I was listening to you, Scott, that he was like, he had, who was the quarterbacks? Was it EJ Manuel one year and somebody else?
It was guys that were forgettable for sure.
And they were middle of the pack.
Yeah, I've already forgotten. I wrote it down and did that show. I'd have to go back and look who he had. It's like, okay, what did you do but I remember it was who came in after him was Tyrod Taylor.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they jumped from like 23rd to 13th in offense. I'm like, wow, matters who you got. So my con on Hackett, Zack hit on a few of them, the inexperience there. But another one is can he put a staff together? That's, who you hire is as important as anything. The coaches that you hire is, for me, the biggest job that a head coach has. So does he have the ability to put a staff together? Now, being the Denver Broncos and all of those things are a good draw, but can he recruit guys to come in and be his staff and not just his buddy, the quarterback's coach as an offensive coordinator? What about the defensive side of the ball? Another part that for me that Zack also mentioned was, if you're not calling the plays, okay, I'm okay. He's got play calling in his background somewhere, I'm sure. But I'm reticent to go get the guy who is coaching Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just does things. He makes ordinary look extraordinary. He can make it look extraordinary. And you can be okay at your job, and Aaron Rodgers is going to boost how he's going to make you look good. Those are the cons. Again, for me, the pros on both of them is just I'll say it before, everybody drink. Culture change. The culture change that either one of these two guys bring is so desperately needed with the Denver Broncos right now. It just absolutely is. Rodney coming in. Appreciate the stars and want to say hello to a few folks who have been very patient coming in also on Facebook.
Good to see you, Michael.
Ronquillo coming in with some stars. And let me come down here a little bit. And Kevin Lynn, he says, I haven't donated for a while. Thanks for still answering all of my questions.
Buddy.
Hey, our pleasure. You got good questions. So it makes for better content and good show. And he comes in as a thank you with some stars. So Kevin, certainly appreciate you. I think I'm the only one that doesn't call you Zebulon because I read the whole thing. Most of these young guys can only get through half a tweet before they tune out. So
semantics, Scott. You are a legend, Zebulon. We appreciate you. And as Chad always says, we're just here for y'all's interaction. It's not a matter of supers and this and that. Just interact with us, ask us questions, debate us. That's what we're here for. Scott, I want to tack on one thing. You made a good point about the youth of Nathaniel Hackett putting together a staff. You seem shocked. Together a staff.
You in the past 5 minutes, you said I listened to you and I had a good point. That just. I don't get it. I'm confused now.
Don't get used to it. But he's so young. He doesn't maybe have those connections around the NFL like Dan Quinn does. Dan Quinn's been around the block as a head coach, as an assistant. He knows a lot of people. Nathaniel Hackett might not have that Rolodex. So building the best staff, that might be a con working against Hackett as well.
And Dan Quinn is beloved, basically. You can't find anybody that's going to say a bad thing about Dan Quinn, the person. Would somebody want to come work for Dan Quinn? Yeah. Is he too easy of a boss? Maybe. The loyalty to a fault is a little. If one of his biggest mistakes was, again, going back to Dirk Cutter, hiring Steve Sarkisian and not firing him after year one. Those were mistakes. So he needs, and I think. With experience, once you get canned, you look back over your shoulder and said, you know what, I should have been a little more ruthless. It didn't do these guys any good for me to stick by them if we all ended up getting fired.
There's some truth to that. Look what Belichick did. And I know he had Tom Brady, but after Cleveland, he was the head coach there. People kind of forget that. And he was definitely forgetable, to be kind. And in New England, he had the second stint. And some coaches just do better in their second stint. That is the hope for Dan Quinn.
The Patriots when they hired Belichick weren't the Patriots that we've come to know by any stretch of the imagination, but they still weren't the Browns.
Right.
They still weren't the Browns.
I was a big Bledsoe guy.
I can say this as a Cleveland-born, raised in Atlanta, two of the most dysfunctional sports cities you'll ever find, and the Cleveland Browns and Atlanta Falcons. If you can get any kind of success in either one of those two places, you're doing really, really well for yourself.
Two great sports towns, though, indisputably. Jonathan Figueroa hopping in again. Thank you so much, Jonathan. $4.99 super. Jonathan goes, I think our best need non-quarterback is right tackle. I think everyone on the line this year regressed, especially Cushenberry. Bowles was disappointing as well. Yeah, he kind of fell apart down the stretch. Went back to being bad Garrett Bowles, and you can argue he got paid, and Shelby Harris did as well, and they kind of just pull back. It might be just like a human trait, they can't control that, but they have to definitely upgrade. You can argue any spot on the offensive line. We talk about right tackle for sure. They have to get that blue chip guy, but Dalton Reisner at left guard, he was pretty bad, I shall say. Cushenberry is upgradable, and I do like Quinn Miners at right guard. I think he's the most stable blue chip presence they have right now. They're going to hold on to Bowles for one more year and hope that it was a fluky year under Munchak, and he might not even be there on this coaching staff this year, Mike Munchak, but I would definitely, above all else, you need that edge protection. It starts there. Whatever quarterback is playing quarterback for Denver next year, they need those edge guys locked down, and I would definitely, for sure, if not quarterback, if not edge rusher, I would do right tackle in the first round.
Either way. And the thing is at 9, you should have one or the other. You should have your choice of a good offensive tackle. And at that age, I don't necessarily care about right or left. Give me an offensive tackle, and I'll put him at right for a while until we get done with, decide what we want to do with Bowles. That's okay with me. I'm not too worried about. Well, he played left tackle in college. So what? We'll make him a right tackle for a little while. If we go with a first round draft pick like Cross, if he were to fall from Mississippi State, if he ends up going at 9. I agree with you 100%. There was one other point in there that I was going to make, and I forgot what was the first part of that.
Bowles.
Sweet. It was it was with the line. Better offensive coordinating will make this line look better as well. Sure. And we talk about did they run a screen? Why does it seem like every time I'm watching one of the teams that I'm following, either the Broncos or the Falcons, every time they run a screen, the ball is thrown and the ball carrier is surrounded by 3 guys. Every time a screen is run against either of these two teams, it's a jailbreak.
Goes for 30.
They dump it right over the top, and the ball carrier catches it, and he's got 3 of his own guys leading the flow. It's like they're in your playbook. They absolutely are in your playbook, and the screen is great. It's awesome. I love a well done screen pass. I didn't see many of them from the Denver Broncos. I saw plenty against the Denver Broncos. Better offensive coordinating, more consistent play across the board will follow.
And quarterbacking as well. That's a great point about the coaching and the play calling, but quarterbacking, that's part of the equation when you want to dump the pass off and get it done with synchronicity. But Art Powell hopping in, it's a pretty interesting question that I bandied about on Twitter earlier. Who would be a great special teams coach? I can't look at you guys and say with a straight face that I know every special teams up-and-coming assistant around the NFL. That's secondary, I feel like, to the head coach and the offensive and defensive coordinators. I would maybe raid someone on Dave Tobe's staff, the Chiefs special teams coordinator. He's like one of the best in the business. I would just look for the best special teams and just get one of their guys and see if they want to come over. One guy to keep in mind, though, is Thomas McGahee. I believe the Broncos show interest. Might have been 2-3 years ago. He was in Carolina. I believe he's a free agent now, or eligible to be hired by the next coaching staff. He's one name to keep in mind. But pal, someone pointed out to me, what if the Broncos brought in Rich Bisaccia, who was the interim Raiders head coach and special teams coordinator? He deserves, to me, maybe you disagree, Scott, a legit head coaching shot. What he did with that team, as dysfunctional as they were, you talk about a leader of men. He was what Vic Fangio should have been, despite being around the same age, despite having that curmudgeon-y kind of get off my lawn type of vibe. If the Broncos could get him, sign me up in a heartbeat and then wake me up because I'm dreaming.
Yeah, can he sustain it? The new coach bounce when you get a culture change that I expect to happen for the Denver Broncos, but then can you sustain it beyond the year? He had his interview, what's his name? Scangarillo. I get these guys confused. The Raiders term coach. He had his interview today for a chance to go and get it for sure. So for me, special teams coach is the nepotism hire. So who's got a son, nephew, somebody coming up that wants to get into coaching? They're going to make him a special teams coach. It's just I don't look that deep because that's the entry level position for somebody who's coming up through the ranks, who's dad, uncle, or somebody is either an owner or a coach or something like that. So I don't look that deep into special teams. Apologies.
As long as they're not in any way, shape, or form related or associated with Tom McMahon. Just avoid that tree altogether. Dennis Woods, $5 super. Thank you so much, Dennis, as always, hopping in and showing support. Dennis wants to know, Scott, does George Paton have any say about the coordinators, or is that strictly the new coach's decision? I'm sure he even said in his press conference after he fired Vic, the next head coach, the candidates he brings in, they have to have a plan for the offense. Whether they're of the offensive mind or the defensive mind, they have to present their vision, their plan, their goals for the Broncos offense. And I guess part of that presentation, PowerPoint or otherwise, Scott, would be what coordinators, what assistants would you be eyeing? And there's that rumor that Dan Quinn was already building his staff behind the scenes to come over to the Broncos if he gets that job. George Paton will have input. I'm sure he would kind of nudge the head coach along to what he thinks the Broncos should have at that spot. But you have to give the power and the accessibility to the new head coach to pick his own guys and get his new guys in the building. It's so important that they feel empowered enough to surround themselves with like-minded people who they think they can win with.
So it would be a collaborative effort. So it would absolutely be a collaborative effort. The Paton would have the ability to cross anybody out. Say, okay, here's the list of guys. Like I'm presenting. Zack's the general manager. I'm the coach. Zack, here's the 3 guys I want to go after. Does this look good to you? And you'll say, yeah, that looks good to me. And frankly, where he's got the most power is I want to see that list probably before I hire you. And if I don't like it,
Right.
You're not going to get the job. So George Paton has the ultimate authority in who are the coordinators going to be, because he's the one hiring the head coach, and he's the one that can fire the head coach. If the head coach doesn't do something that George Paton likes, he can absolutely put the kibosh on it without a doubt. He's the boss.
Jonathan, again, this is the Figueroa-dominated Huddle Up podcast tonight. Thank you so much, Jonathan. $9.99 super. Also, defensive back is a minor need for us. Darby is decent. Simmons and Surtain are great. Other than that, we are weak at the position. Caden will start. OJ looked good off the injury. Yeah, they have something with Ojemudia for sure. They're pretty deep at cornerback. Darby, he was shaky. He's not a lockdown guy by any means, but he was better than AJ Boye was a couple years ago. Obviously, Surtain is a future All-Pro in my opinion. Simmons is of that caliber already. Caden Stearns, I think, does have long-term starting potential. They have Jamar Johnson as well. They're in decent hands. Coaching, regardless of who they bring in for DC or secondary coach, I would continue stocking the shelves, though, when you play in a division with Derek Carr, Mahomes, Herbert. Scott made the point earlier, you can never have too many defensive backs, or you can never have too many toys to play with on defense. So I would say not a round 1 need by any means, round 2 need, but you want to start thinking about it in the middle round just to keep adding to a position of luxury.
There's 3 really, really good corners in this draft. And so far, could change. But if Derek Stingley Jr., Sauce Gardner, Andrew Booth, if you were to take those guys, you could say, okay, I get that. It's actually, like you said, it's a minor need. It's a bigger need than you think, because one injury away, and plus you're on the field in a dime package half the time anyway. You need 6 DBs sometimes on the field at once. Right. We mentioned 4 there. There's some guys that didn't pan out, some guys that are probably going to leave. So, yeah, it's definitely a bigger need than you think. So, appreciate you, Jonathan. I want to say hello to Tori real quick. And before, Zack, you grab Michaela coming in, it looks like, coming in at the top. So, Tori coming in says, and Tori Thomas, that looks like a new name to me. So, welcome to the show. Appreciate your support. Said, I would love for us to get Hackett to work with Locke. I think that would be a huge help for not only Locke, but for the whole team. And that's the important part, Tori, is – while everybody, we root for players, that's why a lot of times I'm pro business, but in sports, I'm really pro labor, because I root for the players. I don't care who the owner is. I just don't care. I'm for the players. So we're all want the players to succeed. If Drew Lock succeeds, great, but you're not bringing in a guy to get the best out of a 2nd-round draft pick. That's just not going to happen. And I think anybody that's going to come in is going to reverse interview with the coach, because they've got options. Dan Quinn is a hot candidate right now. He could have his pick of probably 5 or 6 different jobs. So if I'm Dan Quinn, you gotta sell me. What's your plan for quarterback? What's your plan with the salary cap? And George Paton better have those right answers too, because I don't think anybody's taking this job saying, okay, Zack mentioned the same thing with the coordinators and the flexibility in their hires. They're going to want to have the flexibility with the personnel just as well. And if I'm George Paton and I say, okay, you're going into next season with Drew Lock as your quarterback, you're not going to get the guy you want, period.
Yeah, I said accessibility. The word I was looking for was autonomy. And whether they're the GM, head coach, coordinator, they have to have the autonomy to pick their own guys. Listen, as you guys well know, I'm one of the bigger Drew Lock guys around. I still think he can make something of himself with a real legitimate coaching staff around him and support by his head coach, for one, who doesn't hate him outright. But you're not hiring this head coach with, like Scott laid out perfectly, a 2nd-round pick in mind, who seems like he needs a change of scenery in Denver. It doesn't seem like the Broncos are it for Drew Lock, nor the Lock it for the Broncos. If they can make something out of him, he is the only quarterback under contract right now in Denver for 2022. If they can make something of him, great. Either as a backup or bridge starter, whatever situation that Drew Lock finds himself in Denver, if he's in Denver this coming season, great. But you're bringing Hackett in potentially for the long term, whether that's to continue coaching a guy like Aaron Rodgers or getting the next up and coming quarterback that you can mold. Drew Lock is a plan B in the Broncos' plan A of what they want to do long term.
And Michaela coming in with as always, just the generous supers and
doing Michaela things.
Michaela, we love you, Michaela. I get to say that. I will say that one. I might not talk about letting it breathe, but I will say we love you, Michaela, for sure. She says, I don't know why, but Quinn scares me. Vic 2.0. And this just hit me. I don't know why. That's why I was like, I said the right name, right? As I'm reading this. This just hit me. The only thing they have in common is that they're defensive guys. As far as Vic 2.0, no. This is Pete Carroll. This is a Pete Carroll type of guy with the energy that Pete Carroll brings and the enthusiasm. So if you like Pete Carroll and what he brought to the Seattle Seahawks for the last 10 or 11 years, and that's where that makes sense. Mike Quinn was the defense coordinator of Carroll. That makes sense. I'm starting to string it all together. I'm only 3/4 ADD. But if you don't like Pete Carroll, then that's what should scare you. So, man, I don't want a Pete Carroll type of coach for the Denver Broncos. Then that's what should scare you. He is a polar opposite to Vic Fangio. There's offense, there's defense. You can't just wipe out 50% of your candidates right off the bat because the right guy might be a defensive guy. So you don't have to worry about him being Fangio 2.0 because they're nothing alike as personalities, nothing at all.
Not as personalities, no. But the only similarities you can draw is that they're defensive coaches. They're up there in age because Dan Quinn's 51 and Fangio is whatever, 60, 61, whatever. And
that's a generation apart, dude. Come on.
They ain't in their 30s or 40s.
I'm gonna be like 50 next year. I'm not that old. I'm not 65.
This isn't about you, Scott.
He's 20 years younger than Pete Carroll.
Okay, I'll make another point.
Imagine having Dan Quinn till he's Pete Carroll's age and you got your coach for the next 20 years. Does that sound too old? Come on.
Okay, well, what about offensive coordinator hirings? You know, after failing with Pat Shurmur and...
That's what makes you nervous.
Is Vic getting that leash as a defensive mind who didn't pay attention to the offense? I'm not saying Dan Quinn's like that, but you have to look back on his track record. He was 1 for 3 in hiring offensive coordinators. He failed miserably with 2 of them, and he kind of backed his way into Kyle Shanahan, who would have been great under any head coach. I don't think Dan Quinn deserves credit for hiring Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and again, it's as a collaborative effort. Can he lean on George Paton and do better? Can he do better with it? Because Thomas Dimitroff was criminally bad at what he as a general manager, just horrendous. So that's going to be one of the bigger assets you've got there for sure.
This is talking about bigger assets. We have Chris and Zuko's van life.
That's got to be Mr. Gaspari, right?
Yeah. I saw the Canadian. That's unbelievable. Whoever you are, if it's Christopher Gaspari, Chris and Zuko's van life, that is unbelievable. Thank you so much for that showing of support. We definitely appreciate that. As Chad says, it helps keep light on, and it's definitely true around here, so thank you so much. Evening, gentlemen. Does Peyton have a say in who is our physical training staff, or is that the head coach's decision?
Oh, that's like a story. See?
Oh, I didn't even read that far. The hashtag say to being hashtag MHH for life, aka Christopher Gaspari. Again, Chris, thank you so much. That's definitely unbelievable, and you are quickly rising up the Mount Rushmore lore. In terms of the training staff, if I was Peyton, I'd say, listen, Lauren, you're fired. You're regardless of what the next head coach says, you're gone. We have to shake it up here. But that is going to be, like you use the word perfectly, Scott, a collaborative effort between general manager and head coach. I hope that Peyton has seen it's not just a fluke with Lauren Landau and the training staff. This was years of the same situations, trends, not coincidences. So I would hope that Peyton interjects that, but that's going to be whoever the head coach wants to bring aboard. And more than likely, like they're replacing the entire coaching staff, they're going to bring in their own guys. TBD.
Unless you are hiring John Gruden and giving him a 10-year, $150 million contract and making him president, CEO of operations, and head coach, George Paton's the boss. George Paton will be the boss of the head coach. He will have a say in everything except maybe ownership. But he will have a say in everything that has to do with the day-to-day. And real quick, before we get to Jonathan, let me bring this up here real quick because after Christopher Gaspari came in, I wanted to show the rankings on YouTube right now. I updated these today. It's probably a little small. You can't quite see that. Let me zoom in just a tad. Zoom. And you see the DWI guys is still number 1 on YouTube. Christopher Gaspari, number 2. Might have to change the name again real quick. Michaela coming in. Robbie Nunn's 4. Mark from Georgia came in big today too. And you notice Christy made a move up. KR there sitting at number 7. And I want to show you a name blast from the past who made an appearance on Broncos for breakfast. How about number
Pobby?
16? Pobby
Wow.
coming back in. So I think she's very near and dear to the hearts of Broncos country. She kind of had some personal issues when right about the same time I started. So it is good to see Pobby back. So thanks to all of you as we go down the list here. And you see what a great amount of people we have that support this show. We certainly appreciate you without a doubt. Can't say enough.
Scott, it came to me. Christopher Goat Sparry. That's what we're going to call him from now on. That's your nickname. You've earned it. Thank you so much. I want to talk about Jonathan real quickly. Talk about the boss, like you mentioned earlier. Jonathan's the boss of tonight's podcast. I see the Queen, Christy, making her presence felt as she always does. We'll get to Christy in just one second. Jonathan goes, I want the kid energy Hackett offers because I can see myself jumping up off the couch while he's on the sideline going nuts on an 80-yard touchdown. He would go nuts on a 2-yard handoff. The guy is a ball of energy. And like I said, I retweeted his presser he had today, and he even said, I'm an excitable guy. He's always wearing a smile on his face. He loves talking about football. He'll talk your ear off for an hour. He has great insight, and he's infectious. That's the guy that you want to be coached by. That's the guy you want to go win for. I mentioned this before, Scott. It was like when you were in school, the best teachers you had were like the most fun ones, the ones that you felt most connected to, and you learn more from them. When there were good teachers, you retain more knowledge. You wanted to be in that classroom, as opposed to a teacher who would stand up there and drone like Charlie Brown, or stand there like with his aunt, like Vic Fangio. That
treated you like you were stupid.
What player can feed off that? No one. So you want a guy like Hackett who has that kid energy, who goes crazy, not overly. It's not, it doesn't be too much. It's not a shtick. That's genuinely how he is, and that's what the Broncos need, a shot of life. And whether that comes via Nathaniel Hackett or Dan Quinn, who has the same kind of personality, I am all for that. I'm tired of the curmudgeony.
That's going to happen. Culture change. Rodney Garcia, before we get to Christy, came in a while. Thank you for being patient, Rodney. Hopefully you're still here. Appreciate the support. Says Hackett with Drew Lock if we're unable to get a veteran QB. I want to see Lock in 2019 form with that wristband. He reminded me of Buzz Lightyear against the Texans. I think they're honestly, and it came back in the hope. Like, again, we talk about, I'm going to make a comparison here to Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper. Guys who aren't top of the line starters, but we see flashes and we see what hopefully they can be, and they can take steps that way. There's some revisionist history that goes on with the 4-1 or 5-1 finish that Locke had. I think in those 5 games, he was 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, quarterback rating in the 90s. He was okay. It wasn't the second coming of Josh Allen against the Patriots. He was okay. The problem is you went 4-1, and all of a sudden we're going to reset and start over. It's like, wait a minute, we were on an upward trajectory. Shouldn't we have kept going that direction? Right. I absolutely I understand that 100%. But his form in 2019 was okay, good for a young guy, good for a rookie, but not Pro Bowl caliber quarterback.
And then he hits 2020 and CV's taking over in the NFL. He has a new coordinator, and it's not like that coordinator was, Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. That coordinator was Pat Shurmur looking back on it. So he was always kind of at a disadvantage. He did himself no favors in 2020, but I wouldn't say that Drew Lock had a fair shake in Denver. I don't think anyone would.
If the arrow's going up, for the most part, I'm happy. I don't want to have big drastic changes. And that's where I think we can all agree that didn't help anybody. It certainly didn't help Vic Fangio. He was gone. He should have been, again, I've said it before. I wasn't surprised that he was fired. I was surprised that he was still there. I can't believe he wasn't gone after 2 years with a new general manager coming in. That was the surprise.
Yeah, VJ got 2 years and Vic got, more than that. So I don't know. That's just one of those things that the Broncos have to live with. But we have Christy hopping in here, the queen for a reason. I want to do a little bow because I haven't for a while. Christy, thank you so, so much. You know, we love you genuinely and heartfelt. Good stuff tonight, guys. As always, thank you so much, Christy. The podcast is always better when you bless us with your presence and you know that you are a legend of this brand. So thank you so much.
Yeah, again, appreciate you. It makes me feel good to see that this show is still getting supported, even if I'm on it. So thank you.
That's quite the endorsement.
It makes me feel like, hey, you love me. You really love me. At least you don't hate me. You don't hate me enough to get rid of it, to just tune out. It's I appreciate the opportunity to be on with Mile High Huddle in Broncos country.
That's the new slogan. You know, the Huddle Up podcast. At least you don't hate us. So we can definitely
it could be a lot worse.
Exactly. Todd hopping in here is Zack and Scott. What players are you pounding the table for? Would you take Kyle Hamilton over Cross, Corral, or Stingley? What do you say about that, Scott?
Yes, yes, and yes. I say yes. I say hell yes, and I say ooh, that one's close, but still yes. I'd take Hamilton. If you took Hamilton number 1 overall for a safety, I'd say that's ballsy, and he's the best player in this draft. He's the best player in the draft. If you get a game changer at any position, I don't care about positional value if you get the guy. There's a saying in scouting that it's not the players you miss that hurt you. It's the players you take and can't play. So as long as those are the ones that hurt you, if you get Kyle Hamilton and you miss out on Derek Singler as a star, or you missed out on Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, I forget which year was which. I think it was Josh Allen. But you take Bradley Chubb and he's a star. If you miss it on Justin Fields, but you take up Pat Surtain, but Pat Surtain's a star, you're okay. And if Kyle Hamilton is a star and I think he's got the best hit chance of anybody in this class, I don't care where you take him. So yes, he wouldn't fall past 4 in the New York Jets for me.
Yeah, I was going to say it depends where are you taking these guys, because taking him at 9, taking him at 19 or 29, that makes a big difference. I got to be honest, I'm not really in true draft evaluation mode yet. I'm kind of really super consumed with the head coaching search, and we have free agency coming up before the draft, obviously, but pounding the table early right now. I don't know that I'm pounding the table, but I'm gently knocking on it for Nakobe Dean. You got to have that trailblazer at linebacker. And again, Scott, the case you laid out between his leadership, which Paton loves, and his versatility and just his playmaking ability, they need that injection in the linebacking core. So early on right now, I love Hamilton. I love Stingley, but Dean is also up there for me.
Yeah, appreciate the question, Todd. I take Hamilton over those 3 guys. Like I said, yes, hell yes. And probably because Derek Stingley looked like a number 1 overall not too long ago. And Gio Vandermark, help me out, Zach. I don't recognize that name.
Yeah, he's been around these parts quite a bit. He is a legend in his own right. We love you, Gio.
Back. And pleased to meet you.
Yeah. Say hello, Scott, to Gio. Gio, this is Scott on the Huddle Up podcast. Thank you so much, Gio. That's amazing. You are super generous, and that's why you are the aforementioned legend. I can't pull up the super sticker. I'm going to assume it's Acid Hippo or not Acid Hippo.
Let me mute. I forgot I saw this window open, so I'm surprised things are still working. It's like a jumping happy fox.
Okay, I'll take
fireworks shooting off. So
it's a sign of things to come in the Broncos coaching search. The fireworks are going off. We have Lana, L. Carter hopping in. Stars. We don't know if they're big stars as Scott likes to do.
I'm still behind on Facebook. Okay. So let's run through. I mean, I'm at 8:43. These came in almost 30 minutes ago. So we're gonna run through
rapid
some of our
fire
stars.
Time, baby.
We're going to run through some of our stars. But Phil says, I read the Jags are looking at Leftwich. Did Paton talk with him? Seems like he's a good OC. What's your guys' opinion? I think he should absolutely be on the head coaching searches. I think there's rules. You can only have 10 or so. And I think a couple of these guys were brought in to be possible coordinator interviews, and you just did it under the guise of your head coach. So there was only so much room you could do. But I think Leftwich absolutely deserves a shot at this. I looked it up. It's like, oh, he's got Tom Brady, this or this and that. Their numbers stayed about flat. Leftwich, I think, was the 3rd ranked offense the year before.
With Jameis.
Before Tom Brady. What's this guy's name again? Tom Brady got there. So Leftwich looks pretty good to me. I think he should absolutely be on the interview list.
Yeah, I was shaking my head because the Broncos have not talked to him, but I think they should have used an interview request for him and not Gannon or Mayo or Aaron Glenn for that matter. But they're not talking to him. I think he'll make a fine head coach. I think Jacksonville will be perfect for Leftwich. Work with Trevor Lawrence. He played for Jacksonville. I think that's a perfect match. But no, he did not request an interview, and they're not going to talk to him as of now. So him or Brian Daboll, that was really stunning to me that Peyton didn't reach out, but he has better plans in mind, apparently.
Well, Miguel coming in, and I think Miguel's sitting at the top of the Facebook stars right now. If not, he's pretty close because he's always supporting all of our shows. And I know because I'm on all of them, either behind the scenes or on. And lately I've been on, and we see Miguel all the time. He says, well, can't stay and watch, just want to show some love. So hopefully when you come back and listen, you get the love back from us. So certainly appreciate it. And this is a comment coming in again, just real quick. Just want to reiterate from Al Real. So why would Denver fire Fangio and hire another defensive-minded coach like Quinn? The Broncos need an offensive-minded coach if they want things to turn around. And again, for me, it's about the personality. It's about the culture change. It's not just offense, defense. It's who's the right guy to lead this team. And it might just so happen to be that he's a defensive guy. It might be. It might be.
Yeah, I can't be hypocritical. When the Raiders snuck into the playoffs, I said they don't have to be offensive, defensive. They don't have to be the flashiest, most popular guy, the most expensive guy. They have to be the right guy. And for the Raiders this year to lead them to where they got, considering the turmoil, Bisaccia was the right guy. Peyton, he said it in his press conference. He tipped his hand. He said leadership is the number one quality we're seeking. And in terms of leadership, Dan Quinn blows away the field. And if Peyton thinks he's the right guy, all we can do is trust his judgment and hope he picked the right guy.
So the first show that Zack and I did together in our little feeling out process of I made mention, it was about week 6 of the season. And I said, Zack, we're in the shame on me phase of this relationship. And Zack says, oh, already? He thought I was talking about me and him. And no, I was talking about me picking the Broncos to win when all they really need to do is show up. They mailed it in. That team was done. That team, you could tell by week 5 that team didn't want to play for Fangio anymore. Yeah. That they were just done. And it's like right then, I was like, that's dead man walking. He's a dead man walking. And it's the culture change for sure. But Rodney coming in with some more stars, saying main positions to fill are edge rusher and offensive line. We absolutely agree. When we talk about the easiest places to improve this team, other than quarterback, in free agency or draft, it's right tackle and then edge, and then to a lesser extent, the interior line as well. So appreciate the comment, Rodney. He's coming in with stars. Rodney's all over the timeline.
Thank you, Rodney.
Huge generosity from Rodney.
Yeah, for sure. I want to point out, we're kind of winding down, guys. If you have any questions or comments last minute, get them in. We'll try to highlight them. But Zebulon, first off season without Vaughn and pass rusher is immediately the biggest need. Oof, yeah. Well, that's what happens when you whiff with the number 5 overall pick and Bradley Chubb. When he doesn't work out, you're kind of set back because that's the bluest of blue chips to take at that spot. You passed on Allen, you passed on some other players to take a guy who didn't pan out, so that's what happens. But I'm loving what Vaughn's doing. I think he has 6 sacks in 5 games, and playoff Vaughn is activated right now. He gets to face Tom Brady again, who he's owned in his career. I'm happy for Vaughn and what he's doing in Los Angeles.
Vaughn wasn't brought to LA for the regular season. Right. The more they expand these playoffs, the more it looks like the NCAA tournament, where the good teams are going to make it. They might drop a game here or there. It doesn't matter. They're going to get their 11-6 and get into the playoffs, and then the good teams are going to step up and wipe these teams that were in the hunt at 8-8 going into the last week of the season. It makes for a watered down first round of the playoffs, and Vaughn was not brought in to go hair on fire in week 14.
Yeah, for sure. Jaden hopping in, Jaden Torres. What do you think about isn't he the center for the Buccaneers, Jensen? I don't
know much about him.
Not our co-host. I think it's Ryan Jensen. My opinion of him, he is the center for the Bucs. If the longer that Brady sticks around and Bruce Arians, for that matter, they're going to keep the band together as much as they can. So I'm assuming he's going to be a free agent in March. I think if Brady's there, he's going to stay with Brady. So it's one thing to keep in mind. I'm still a big Lloyd Cushenberry truther, though. I think the Broncos have something there, and you can argue at stretches, at times, he was, I know it's not saying much, the most consistent guy, especially because before Quinn Miners got into the starting lineup. So they can upgrade on him, but I don't know.
Made me nervous how dominated they got in the trenches by big physical interior linemen on defense. It made me a little nervous there. When we watched the Broncos really get beat, whoever had an alpha dog on a defensive tackle, and I'm just not sure Cushenberry is a championship caliber interior lineman. Jacob Foster, championship caliber superstar giver, that's for sure. Appreciate you coming in here, Jacob. DeAngelis Jones and Zebulon. I actually thought, I read it, Zebulon Kevin Lind. I read that as like a fraternity name, so I apologize if your first name is Zebulon. I've been thinking your name's Kevin the entire time. So thanks for the shout out there.
I think we're going to close the podcast tonight, guys. On this note, Scott, Art Powell wants to know. I'll let you go first. Who do you guys have going to the Super Bowl, Scott?
Oh goodness, I like the Bills. I do. I like the Bills. I think they are the most complete team. I think they've got a quarterback that can match, maybe even at times exceed the quarterback on the other side of the ball. They're both capable of the spectacular. Their interior line play on defense is really strong. They've got playmakers at the back end of their defense as well. They've got skill players. You know, you got Diggs over there. Could use a little bit better out of the running back, but we'll quote Nick and say running backs don't matter, especially when you got a 240-pound running back that's making linebackers look like they're running in quicksand. You've got your running game. So I'm going to go Packers Bills. I think I'll go with the Packers to beat the Rams in the NFC Championship. They're not playing this weekend, are they? I've actually been so wrapped up in this. It's
Rams and Bucks.
Okay, I didn't think so. So I'm going to go, oh, can the Rams beat the Bucks? Oh, that's going to be a heck of a game. So I think I like the Packers. I do. I like the Packers to go, and I like the Bills to finally get. If the Braves can do it, by God. If the Georgia Bulldogs can do it, by God, and break 100 years of curses, then it's the Bills' turn. I like the Bills. I think when they're on, they're as good a team as there is in football right now.
Hell, if Kansas City can do it after 50 years, and any team can. That's the thing about Buffalo that scares me, is that when they're on, they're pretty much unbeatable. Same for Los Angeles, but they're streaky. You know, didn't Buffalo lose to Jacksonville earlier this year?
Yeah, they had a couple of those just and because I was on the Buffalo Bills podcast last night, and I made that same comment about these teams, they take games off. You know, they just
let down games.
Game season, they just mail it in. They're like, you think so? I'm like, explain to me how you lose to the Jaguars. And he's like, well, yeah. I'm like, I don't care if you're bringing a Detroit Lions F squad that they brought to Denver. The Bills are better than the Jaguars. So it's just throw it out. What happened? What happened when every home team won except one, didn't they? Except for the Cowboys were the only. And the Cowboys are probably in the weakest division of the bunch. So maybe their record was inflated a little bit going into the playoffs. But the teams that you expected, the teams that we thought that were the better teams in the AFC and NFC, they all won, and most of them won pretty handily.
My preseason pick was that we're going to get a rematch of Bucks and Kansas City, and I'm going to stick with one of those teams. I think it's Buffalo and Kansas City in the AFC Championship, and if that Kansas City defense just plays a little better, they can win any game in the offense if they hold on to passes. I just think Kansas City is getting hot at the right time. They're finding their offense. They're finding ways to get big plays despite teams playing cover 2 shell, taking away the deep ball. They're getting Tyreek Hill involved. So I'm going to go Kansas City. I'm going to change my pick from Tampa Bay. I don't think they can weather the loss of Chris Godwin, not even Antonio Brown so much, but their running backs are hurt too with Fournette and Rojo. I think they're going to be eliminated, and especially, again, if Los Angeles can play up to their potential, they're pretty much unbeatable if Stafford's on point. So I'm going to say Green Bay, Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and I'm going to say Green Bay wins that. Aaron Rodgers gets another one, and he might walk off in the sunset, a la Peyton Manning.
I don't see. I that's the one part I disagree with y'all on. I think if he wins, he's more likely to leave. I think the two scenarios, we got that question the other day. What are the scenarios where you see Aaron Rodgers leaving the Packers? One, they get their doors blown off, and he feels like they're too far away, and he wants to go somewhere else. Two, and this is more likely to me, is if he wins a championship, If he wins the championship, Buffalo and KC play.
Yeah, thank you for making that point.
The next game, I think, is the AFC Championship game.
Exactly.
I think Tennessee and Bengals are teams 3 and 4. I expect the winner of the Buffalo-Kansas City game this weekend, which I picked Buffalo to win 31-27 last night, to be in the Super Bowl. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to win back-to-back MVPs and then say I'm done. Because when you're done, you're done. And you've got the rest of your life to be done. He might just say, I'm done with Green Bay. I came back. We had this drama last year. Now I want a new. I delivered you another Super Bowl. You're welcome. Now I'm going for a new challenge. And you know what? Green Bay Packers fans will say thank you and good luck. God bless. When you're ready to go into the Hall of Fame, we'll be here for you.
Yeah, it's certainly a topic that we'll discuss in the weeks ahead, but that's going to do it, I think, guys, for the Huddle Up podcast for this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. I'm looking at the banner, Scott. I see a BTB took over our banner section, so we don't have the Huddle Up Pod banners, nor our Twitter banners, but follow the pod on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. If you haven't, go to huddleuppod.com and get yourself a t-shirt, get yourself a hoodie, beanie, coffee cup, all great things at huddleuppod.com. And if you haven't, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, hit that big blue button. Instant access to VIP programming, Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club, and Trickle Zone each and every week. And facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Like that page and follow that page. If you haven't, guys, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest, including Scott, a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every single month. But if you can't do those things, please do these 3 things. Takes a few seconds. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. Scott, any parting words?
No, I don't want it to be Tampa Bay. I've had enough of Brady. He's got enough of them. They won one last year. Great job. Let's let somebody else do it this year. And I think I think this is as deep a good group of teams as we've had in a while. I could see one of 5 or 6 teams winning it this year. And I think the next couple of weeks are going to be really a lot of fun. Not just for the Denver Broncos, for all the reasons of a new hope, but the playoffs and the Super Bowl will actually be interesting for a change.
It'd be a fun game, Buffalo and Cincinnati. That would be a fun game for the, casual and diehard football fan. But we're getting out of here, guys. Back on tomorrow. You have Broncos for breakfast tomorrow morning, Scott?
Broncos for breakfast. Building the breakfast for Broncos Huddle Up Huddle. So, yeah, we're back tomorrow. Nick and I will be back on tomorrow at 7:30 Mountain Time, 9:30 Eastern. And we'll be ready to talk some more football. And we'll probably get into the draft a little bit. And Nick and I both tend to stray that way some with our personal interests.
Check that out, guys. Also, we're back on tomorrow night for the end of week Huddle Up podcast, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.